Alright. Alright. The breaker's off. Battery's in. Look at the screen come on with the breaker off and no key. Turn the breaker on. Turn the key on. I don't know if you've seen it. It went up to 123 miles per hour, then it went back to 0 miles per hour. Alright guys, welcome to another episode of Oregon Motorcycle. In today's episode we're talking about some issues that I'm having with my Talaria Sting. It's actually running right now, so I don't know, like, we'll see how far it goes. So I'm gonna tell you guys all about the problems I'm having in this video. Okay, so the other day I was riding and I started with a full battery, and I got, I don't know, maybe a mile or two, and I noticed that my screen was off, and so I thought that was kind of odd. So I stopped, I turned the battery off and turned it back on. The screen came on, and I was like, okay. So I went riding again, and no less than a couple blocks the screen went out again. And when the screen was going out, I didn't have any lights or, that's a fast dog, I didn't have any lights or horns or anything, and I couldn't control anything on the screen, and the kickstand switch or nothing didn't work or anything. So I went a little further and I went to this grassy area, kind of like this grassy area, and I started practicing some wheelies and stuff. And I stopped for a minute again because the screen went out again, and I was just like, okay, whatever. And so when I stopped that time, I lost power, and I was like, oh no. So I kind of rolled it down a hill and kind of just hung out for a little bit and started playing around with the battery and the connections and all that stuff, and I couldn't really get it really to do anything, except sometimes the screen would come on when I plugged the battery in, which was kind of weird, even with the key off and all that stuff. So alright guys, I'm out here at the park. I'm just a couple miles away from home. My Talaria is like acting weird, so I don't know, it totally just died on me up there on this hill, quit on me. So at first I noticed that my screen was off, and so I turned it on and turned it back off, turned it off and turned it back on, and my screen came back on. And then the screen went off again while I was riding. I turned it off, turned it back on, screen came back on. Then I was riding up here and the screen just came off again, and I was like, whatever. I just kept riding, and then the whole bike just died. Oh, and the headlight's not working either, so no headlight, no screen. The bike completely died, couldn't get it going again. So I came down here, pulled the battery out, put it back in, and then like when I plug the battery in, the screen comes on, like it's turned on, and then it just fades out. Now when I turn this key on, there's no screen, there's no light, there's no headlight, but it went a minute ago, so I'm gonna see. Yeah, nothing. God dang it. It worked a minute ago. I'm trying to get back home at this point. So I ended up getting a ride home because I couldn't get it started again, and that was that happened at about 90% battery or something. We're at 89% right now. So I got it home and I went through and I checked all the connections. All the connections looked perfect on this bike. I tested the ignition switch here. That tested fine. You know, I did all these tests and everything, and what's happening now with the bike, like, well, it's not consistent, I guess, but I had some stuff to do, so I had to you know, let it sit for a couple days. So I charged the battery, came down today with 100% battery and plugged it in, and it was working like it was perfect, like it was a new bike. I was like, what the hell? So what I did is I just rode around the block and stayed really close to home, kind of like I am right now, and I rode around. It was perfect. I took my dog for a little run too on it, and I don't know. Then I go and grab some tacos for lunch, come home and eat the tacos, you know, and I left the battery plugged in, you know, and everything. Like, you would stop for a little bit. I just turned the key off, obviously, and I went in and ate lunch, you know, and came back out, and the screen was flashing. So, and that's again with the key out and supposedly no power going to it. All right, so I was riding the bike around a little bit. It was working fine on a fresh charge, and I let it sit out here. I just went and had some lunch. And now, well, it's hard to see, but the screen is like flashing on and off. Just sitting here. The key's not in. The breaker's on right now. Yeah, it's just like flashing. Just flashing Talaria. Then the speedometer comes on for a minute, and then it goes off again. So I just messed around with it for a little while, and it was going, you know, on and off, and the screen was flashing on and off. But what I did is I rode it around in circles in my backyard with the screen off, and when the screen's off and it runs, you don't have any control, so you can't go between eco and sport, and you can't adjust the gen. The kickstand switch doesn't work, so you can actually run the bike with the kickstand down, which is really weird. And I just kept playing with it, and then it just kept running. So I kept going, and the screen comes back on, and I don't know. So now I'm riding the bike, and it's running fine, plenty of power, and I've been riding around. I'm just trying to deplete the battery a little bit, because I think I'm having issues with the battery. That's what I think the problem is. But I've talked to my sources, and there's also another issue that we're looking at too that could have something to do with the converter. So there's a little converter down here, and that's why I have my I have one of my side covers off, because I'm trying to like see if anything's getting hot down there. So I was putting my fingers on the converter. It's staying cold. So yeah, I don't know. I think maybe something in the battery might be shorted possibly, and that's what's giving it power when I plug it in, because I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't make much sense. But it's weird right now. It's like working perfect. The screen's staying on, and it's working good and everything, you know. And it seemed like today too, like when I first ran it today, and I don't know if it was just me or what, but it seemed like the screen was a little dull too, like it wasn't as bright in contrast. But that could just be in my head or whatever. So yeah, so like I said, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with my warranty and all that stuff, and I'm going to give you guys a complete breakdown of how all this is going to go, and you know what's going to happen with the bike. I don't want to say anything right now. I just want to see what the end results are and all that stuff, and then I'll give you guys my opinion about my experience with a warranty claim on this bike, because I think it's gonna end up being a warranty claim on this thing. There's something, definitely there's a bug in this thing somewhere, and this is one of the things that I worried about when I bought this bike, like something weird like this happening where I couldn't really test it. Now I know the basics of, you know, electronics, so I went through, like I said, checked all the connections, and why I checked them, I went ahead and put a dielectric, little bit of dielectric grease in all the, you know, the fittings, so they're protected even better now. And like I said, you guys know how much water this thing's been through, like mud and stuff and everything, and I washed it, of course, and all the connectors look perfect. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm kind of afraid now to take this bike on a long distance trip, you know, even though I have insurance. I have free towing, so I have full coverage insurance on this bike, so I could just call up my Geico and they'll come pick me up for free, which is totally cool. I highly recommend it, you guys, because you never know how far away from home you'll be, and maybe if you go out to lunch or something, somebody steals your bike. I mean, it's well worth it. So yeah, we're just gonna keep riding around here, and I'm surprised the screen hasn't gone out yet. This is so weird. Like I said, the problem now is being intermittent, which is allowing me to ride the bike, which is kind of cool. So we'll go around here and just take some trails.